L is for the way.
At Petfix Club, we want to make owning a pet the best it can possibly be for you and the one you love. Enjoy personalised online pet care at petfixclub.com. Start your free trial today. Love your pet? Join the club.
Hi there, it's Pete Wedderburn here. I'm known as Pete the Vet, and I'm here to do my weekly IGTV session. I'm the co-founder of an exciting new website. It's called Petfix Club, and that's a place where people can go to get affordable, high-quality veterinary information about their pets anytime, anywhere. And as well as Petfix Club, we have petfixshop.ie. That's a place where you can go to get good value, high quality food, accessories, anything at all for your pet. Basically, what's happening today, as every Wednesday at this time, is that we're having a chat. And this week, I'm really excited to be having a chat with Laura Fox, the RTE2FM presenter. And she is a French Bulldog called Thor. And we're going to learn all about Thor. And we're going to talk about some of the issues affecting Brachycephalic dogs, short-faced dogs like French Bulldogs.
Hi Laura, how are you doing?
I feel like he's actually too big to be in this video. Mr.
He looks pretty big, all right. That's the famous Thor, is it?
This is infamous Thor now. At this point, I think is what he's going by. He couldn't care less about this right now. He's like, let me off.
I love that he's put a special bow tie on for the occasion. That's lovely.
He has his dog father's dicky bow on.
I feel very underdressed here. He's quite a big French Bulldog, isn't he?
He is, and he's quite long. I don't know if we see him from here, but like he's a really lean French Bulldog. Yeah. And I know when I'm down in the park with other people, they're like, how is he so lean? And then a greyhound will take off and he'll be gone after him. And I'm like, that's how he's so lean. He just loves to run. He's not your typical like French Bulldog, I suppose, characteristics. Like he does love to be really active and really playing. And it's really handy for us because it means that he'll come and do everything with us all the time.
Yeah. But listen, Laura, tell me the story about Thor. How did you come across him? What's the background? What's his background?
So Thor is like quite an unusual background. I obviously had wanted a dog for ages. French Bulldog were always my dream dog. But what ended up happening was my sister-in-law and her partner, they knew the vets, and the vet had actually come in contact with all of these French Bulldog puppies that had been rescued from this really just horrible circumstance. It was a desperate puppy farm. So they ended up getting this French Bulldog. I happened to be living with them at the time, so I took on the role of au pair, and I did all of his training, I did all of his walking, I did all of his socializing. Now, we had lived with Brian's sister for 3 years, and we kind of just forgot that at some point we'd be moving out. So when we did move out, there was kind of no way that me and him were going to separate. I mean, he was too attached to me, but I still am. I'm more obsessed with him than he is with me. He's like, give it a rest. I'm kind of over it at this point. So yeah, in terms of actually getting a French Bulldog, because you don't see them as rescue pups really often at all, that's how he came into our lives. And that's why, I mean, I've had in-depth conversations with you about getting him neutered. And that's why it's so important to me, because he came from a puppy farm. I just don't think that it would be ethically okay to then go and produce some more. And I always feel like if I did, I'd have such bad karma. Something desperate would happen to me in my life at some point.
And how old is he now?
He has just got a year since last month. So we had this elaborate birthday party for him at the time.
All right.
Which of course he hated, but you know, it's a typical fashion from him.
And tell me, did you when he was rescued, was that after the lockdown then? It must have been last summer, was it?
Yeah, it was last June. So he was born in April, and then he came to us in June, and he was just this like, well, I'll let you know because he's no interest in being here.
Yeah. No.
He was just
one of the funny things about dogs is they don't usually sort of know what a screen is. So Thor wouldn't be looking at the screen and say, oh, look, there's somebody on the screen over there. He wouldn't be like paying attention. Like they do watch television sometimes, but they don't really make the same connection that voices come through phones and that people are talking to them.
they're not. He's not in the least bit interested. It's funny you say television. I found this show called The Dog House on Channel 4, which is kind of a bit like Tinder for like families and dogs, and they match up your perfect rescue dog with the perfect family without having to compromise on either end. And he, from start to finish, the episode's 45 minutes long. It's the only TV series that we've ever put on that he's like, and he'll follow them around the place. So it's really, I think I absolutely adore it. If you've got dogs at home, put on the doghouse for them and just let me know, because they've even tailored the music at the very beginning to be really kind of high pitched. So his head's just going like this, and he's doing all those like really cute puppy things.
I wonder if they designed that program to make it attractive to dogs, because one of the reasons why dogs aren't really interested in this kind of normal stuff is that their hearing is so different, and also their vision is different. So they can see high definition television, but they can't see regular television. It just doesn't mean anything to them, you know?
Yeah,
so
I reckon they did. I really do, because like I said, nothing else phases him. And there could be dogs on regular TV shows, or there could be people talking in gunfights, and he doesn't flinch. He'd be snoring away. But the music hits on that, and he's fast asleep, and he's like, okay, I'm awake. I'm alive. I'm ready to go.
That's really funny. You know, you can get special dog TV as well. Like you can, you can buy DVDs for dogs, which is full of like squeaky things and moving birds and little creatures, so that dogs are meant to be entertained by it. I don't know if it really works, but it's
I'm
nice.
already ridiculous enough, so I don't go putting any more ideas into my head about this.
Yeah. And tell me about his breed, because not everybody watching will know what that breed is. Can you tell me about it?
So he's a French Bulldog, and I mean, because, and it kind of saddens me as well, because they're so like pleasing, they're so cute and precious, and they're very intelligent and smart. I get like, my DMs are flooded all the time with people being like, where did you get him? I'd love a French Bulldog, yada yada yada. And cool, absolutely, like I adore him so much. But there is so much more that you have to think about when you're getting a flat-faced breed, as opposed to just getting you run-of-the-mill like Jack Russell or like a terrier or something that's got a long nose, because they've got a lot of issues. Like, I mean, they are a vet's dream. Like, Pete, I think you hear from me a bit too often, but to be honest, they've got like really bad breathing issues. They can have stomach issues, like his skin. We have to be so careful with the type of diet that we give them, the type of treats that we give them. But on top of all of that, they're very intelligent. So he needs to be constantly motivated and on. And I will tell everybody in a couple of minutes, he actually hurt his paw just last week. And because of that, he can't go out until tomorrow now at this point. So he hasn't been out all week. And he's staring at me being like, what's this crack? Like, why have we not left the house yet? I'm not into this kind of thing. Because he takes a lot of exercise. They do say typically if you Google French Bulldogs, they'll say they need 15 minutes of exercise and that'll do them. Like, I think if I brought him outside the house for 15 minutes, like, he'd probably choke me in my sleep. Like, he'd kill me. They're very lovable. Their pros outweigh the cons. But I do always say to people, be prepared to have a very hefty bank balance that you're willing to spend on them, because if something goes wrong, if they can't tell you what's actually going wrong with them, with any dog, and that is with any dog, but with them, their issues are because they've been so overbred throughout just years of people trying to get the English Bulldogs and then bring them down, but their face is so flat that their airwaves are impacted. Now, we're very lucky with him. We got him checked out numerous times, like as he was growing. His breathing isn't bad enough to need the Brachycephalic surgery. Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, like when I was looking at him there, I couldn't hear him breathing at all.
Yeah.
A lot of flat-faced dogs, they're also called brachycephalic dogs. A lot of them have got their faces so short that they're like, and people think, well, it's normal for a dog to breathe like that. Well, it kind of is normal for some breeds to be like that, but it's no more comfortable for them than it is for us to be going.
Yeah.
There's at a veterinary conference recently, they had a special mask which they put on people, and it was designed to mimic how it feels to have a flat face, and it really is very claustrophobic and unpleasant to have that. But like, there's a lot of individual variety there, and I think I've campaigned quite a lot to let people know about the risks of having a flat-faced dog. As you've mentioned, not everybody is as fortunate as Thor is. A lot of dogs do have really big and really expensive issues. And because I campaign about it, I think people think sometimes that I don't like those little dogs. I really, really do like them, but I just don't like the fact that, like, they're not like, they don't have their problems because of an accident. They have their problems because they've been bred to look like that. And the problem is that for every one like Thor who has no health issues at all, there's actually probably about 9 of them who really do have health issues, and it's preventable. It's preventable very simply by breeding them to slightly longer faces. They still be just adorable, just as cute, but they just need to slightly longer noses, most of them.
And that's it. And like, and as I said, we are ridiculously lucky with how he is. But down in the park, like, I can hear some of the other dogs coming before I can see him, between pugs and French bulldogs. And there's some pugs that I can't even see their face when they turn sideways. They're just all fluff all around it. And that's the thing as well. And I never want to seem ungrateful, because I don't know what I do in the morning without him. He has done so much for me, and I love him so much. And I do think French Bulldog as a breed are so phenomenally fantastic. They are hilarious. And they just, like, me and Brian talk about it all the time, about the fact that we're like, oh, there's a dog and there's a human dog. And I just think that Thor is half human, half dog, because some of the times you just can't be arsed their shit. He's like, I know I'm smarter than you are in this. So exactly the same as you are. When people are coming to me, I'm not deterring them away from the breed, but I am just letting them know and giving them the information that, okay, here are the issues with the breeds. So if you are, make sure that you are going to a reputable breeder. Please don't buy a dog that you know nothing about. Like, that's the thing as well with Thor. We've no idea what his dad is. And I always think, I'm like, his dad could easily been like half staff or something, because he is a lot taller and longer and doesn't have those breed issues.
He's very muscly, isn't he?
Yeah, he is. He's 13 kg of full-blown muscle. And it is mad, because he ran past another lady in the park the other day who went down to pet him, and he knocked her over, and she wasn't expecting that, because her dog was 4.5 kg. So it was just because he didn't look a whole lot bigger than her, but he's just like, he's compact with muscle. But yeah, no, I mean, we've been really lucky with him in every sense of the word. That we'll never get this lucky ever again, even if we get a second dog on top of him, because he was like, you know, when people have their dream baby, like, we got a dream puppy.
Yeah. And listen, do you have him insured?
Yes.
You do?
Oh my gosh, yes, we've got him insured. And that's another thing as well, because we're on with Petfix, obviously, and I do want to talk about this. Even before the live, I talk about Petfix an awful lot on my Instagram. I cannot tell you, especially because I think I'm more hypersensitive to things that might be wrong with him, that you would look at a regular dog and you would think, no, they're fine. But because they've got such underlying issues, I'm the whole time being like, is he going to wake up? Is he going to stay going? What's wrong with him? And just to give everyone a bit of a story that happened last Thursday, and to how Thor ended up coming to hurt his paw. Last Thursday night, out of nowhere, and it was so bizarre, I full on thought that he was possessed by a ghost. He woke up on the couch and he was just gone ballistic. And this was happening at, like, it was 9:30 in the evening. So I kind of tried to calm him down a little bit, and he was going at his paws, just 90, like scratching at them, but not one in particular. He was going at them all. And then he wouldn't come back into the sitting room, and he was just absolutely spooked. So I brought him upstairs, and as you can see, we live in an apartment block, so we need to go upstairs to go to the toilet. So I brought him upstairs to go to the toilet, just to try and distract him a little bit from what was going on. And he wouldn't leave my side. And there's another dog that lives here, and she came up and she tried to play with him, and he wouldn't. He just was right over beside me. And that's so unusual for him, because he's such a sociable puppy that half the time I'm like, please come back. Where are you going? But anyways, fast forward, I messaged you at 10 to 10 because I was so scared. I didn't know what to do. Do I go ring in the emergency vets? Like, how do I even explain what's happening? So you were on the money straight away. You said, I reckon that he probably got a bite from like an insect or a spider or a bee maybe, and that he got a fright from it, and that's what woke him up. And, you know, just keep an eye on him and see how he is. So that's what we did. I took him in the bed with me, and he didn't go to sleep till 4 o'clock. So that was fun for everybody. And then the following day, we just kind of had to coax him up a little bit and get him up. And then he was back eating his food. He was back playing ball. I brought him out for a short walk. But his temperament was totally fine. He was back playing with more dogs. So I went about my business. And then on Monday morning, we got up and he was limp on that leg. And he couldn't put any pressure on it whatsoever. Couldn't step. And then I was there panicking and crying because I was like, what do I have to do to my dog? I should have listened to my gut. I should have brought him in. But where I'm going back to is, if I didn't have your advice throughout that night, I don't know what I would have done. Like, I think I would have rocked up to like UCD or the vets or something and been like, My dog's possessed or been like getting a clairvoyant or something out to see him. But it turns out that he did have a bite. Now, when I was examining his paws, he's hardy to a fault. They're very tough. Bully breeds, anyone who has a bully breed will know just how tough they are, that they don't feel pain like other dogs will. And it's hard to get a whimper out of them. But sometimes you're nearly more worried because you're like, are you in pain? Because you're not showing any signs of it. So over the 4 days, he had let me touch at his paws, no issue at all. And then I checked underneath, but I'm not a vet, so I didn't realize that I had to pull out the pads. So when we did bring him into the vets, she pulled out the pads and it was just right underneath there. He'd obviously gotten a bite, it had blistered, it had burst, and that's what was causing such discomfort. He couldn't, his whole pad had swelled up, so he couldn't.
Right, so it must have just got a bit infected then. Was that what it was?
Yeah. So now he's on these really high painkillers and antibiotics, and we just keep pressure off it. I know, the poor thing, and that's the bit that killed me, was that like he went about, I mean, all weekend we had him out, we were playing, and I kept just checking him kind of at various points, but he wasn't back at them again, and that's what got me. I was like, oh God, I feel so awful. But it was just when we brought him in then on Monday, it was because he literally could not step down.
He was holding it right up.
He was holding it right up, and when he did try to step, it was like this little limp of a man that was going around the place. But then the painkillers got into him and he was like, this is great. So he's flying it.
I think one of the things that we forget is how dogs can feel emotions so strongly. So so if they have a fright or something, they really do get quite scarred by it, and they haven't got the thinking power to kind of understand why. So if he got bitten by something or stood in something that made his foot very uncomfortable, he wouldn't know. He would just know that where he was, something bad happened. So he wouldn't want to go back to that place again. So it can be really strong, though. They can get really upset.
Yeah, and he was, and we had to do a lot of coaxing to get him back over near the couch the next day. And we did a lot of like distracting tactics of like playing ball with him and playing with these teddies. And then he kind of forgot about it. And then he was on the couch and he was like, oh, how do I feel about this? And we just kind of reinforced it with like, you know, positive things that he actually really enjoyed, like, oh, here's a treat and here's like your teddies and stuff. So he's totally fine now again. He's back on the mend. But he was supposed to be going in to get neutered on Tuesday, and I'm fully convinced that, because my housemate and my boyfriend are all on Save Thor's balls, but I'm fully convinced, because this is now the 3rd time that we've had to reschedule it just because of stuff that's come up. So he is back in now again in 2 weeks' time. I think the main reason that I want to get it done is, like, I've just read so many like different health like things that can happen to them because of it. We're never planning on breeding him much at all, as I would adore to have like lines. I really would. It was something that I would so love, and I could make a mint of it if I decided something like, oh yeah, I'll just put him out to stud. But ethically, I don't think it would be very fair, because I don't know who his dad is. Like, I don't know what the rest of the litter were like. We could have just got golden with him. And there's so many puppies out there in the world right now that it wouldn't be fair to go adding more on top of it. And especially more that you don't have all the research for.
I think that if you're going to breed from dogs, I mean, you know, there is a demand for puppies to some extent, but if you are going to breed from dogs, you really have to do it properly. And that means it's almost sort of professional, the level you need to do. You need to find out all about the health issues. You need to make sure that you do pre-breeding tests. You know, it's a big deal. It's probably going to take up, you know, 6 months of your life focused on this sort of thing. You know, but anyway, so and it's I think it's more an issue if you have a female dog. With the male dogs, it's, even if you wanted to breed from him, it would be quite adorable as he is. If somebody's breeding French Bulldogs, they're more likely to look for a male dog who's done well in the show ring, you know, who ticks those particular boxes. It's a funny kind of
seen that too, like because obviously, like, I follow every French Bulldog page that there is going, because and it's great when you're in a community that have the same dogs. If there are same issues that can come up, you can pop them in and just be like, well, this is what happened here, XYZ. So it is great for learning more about the breed. But like, I laugh so hard. Like some of them that are going in, like Thor just looks like that dweeb that's just this little like stick thin like figure who wouldn't be able to stand up against these bruisers. They're like literally like this, and they're the types of dogs that everybody's kind of breeding out of. But we're happy with him.
Look, you've a great dog, and I would just enjoy him while he's with you, and hopefully he'll be with you for a long, long time to come.
Oh, I know. I know that we were speaking earlier on about. I was just telling people about his like stomach issues and all that kind of stuff. And I just seen someone's after writing in saying he's not mad about dry food on his own. This is something like obviously like I've spoken to you about before on the Petfix chat. There was another really interesting find for us because we had him on dry food when he was like a teeny tot of a pup, when he was this size, and then when he was transitioning out of it, we put him onto a raw diet. And the raw diet then obviously like it's fantastic, his coat is very healthy, he's physically in great shape because of it, and he hounds it down. And when we were moving house, because our freezer space was so small and the raw diet has to be frozen and defrosted overnight, we kind of thought, okay, let's try transition him out and onto the dry food, and because it'd save time and hassle for us, and it'd be so great. It was the greatest nightmare that I've ever tried to do in my whole entire life. He went on hunger strike. He just refused to eat. And then when he did eat, the poor, oh my God, the poor puppy, he ended up getting dermatitis. Then he had really bad stomach cramps. And then we were finished. We were like, okay, we can't do this to him anymore.
So what have you done now? Is he back onto the raw, is he?
Yeah, he's back onto the raw food, and he adores it. Like he gets really excited, and he'll like sit and he'll be waiting, being like, "Okay, is it food time yet? Is it food time yet?" Which is fab. Whereas before that, it was more work for me, and I tried everything. I know you guys bought out a brand, but he was just, because he's so stubborn as well. He just seemed like dry and was like, "No, I don't care what you put down in front of me. I'm not going to eat it." I was soaking the nuts overnight. I was mixing them in with a bit of sweet potato, and then he'd eat it when he was starving. But I imagine, because he was like, you gave me like caviar and now you're trying to take it away and give me McDonald's.
Well, I think every dog is different, you know, like and I think very much what I always say to people about feeding their dogs is, you know, to some extent, listen to your dog and watch your dog. And if your dog is thriving on a diet, well, that's fantastic, whatever it is. But just be aware of it and be informed about it. The main issue, well, the only real issue I have about raw food, there's two things actually. First, make sure it's balanced, because not all raw, you can't just give a dog raw meat and just that's it. You have to make sure that it's balanced, that it's nutritionally complete. And I know that you do that. You buy one which is nutritionally complete.
Yeah, which I can't stop laughing at it, because sometimes I'm looking at his dinner going like, you have more fruit and veg than I do. They come in these little sausages, and like, I mean, again, another thing that he hasn't come out of since pup, we've got to be really careful with his food. We can't give him like big chews or big sausages, because he swallows them down whole. He gets so excited about eating them. Yeah, he doesn't spend the time. He's so impatient. So we have to still go and break up all the sausages and like sprinkle them out. But like, he'll have all these little like peas rolling around his like food, and like he is such a mix. He is like chicken, beef, venison, and I'm laughing so much because I'm like, I'm breaking up his thing, and I'm like, okay, what sandwich am I going to make? Just like on the toast.
It's a full-time job. And the other thing is that with the raw food, as you know, that it can carry bacteria that dog stomachs can cope really well with, because they've got very acidic stomachs. But for the humans who are handling the food, and also dogs, after they've eaten, they've got the bacteria around their face sometimes. So if they're sniffing you and so on, some humans, if they're immunocompromised, like I suppose young children or elderly people or people with chemotherapy or whatever, then it can be a bit of an issue for them. And so we do need, you know, everyone needs to watch that. But I know you're very conscious of that.
Yeah, I think I'm a bit too bloody conscious of all this stuff. Like, sometimes I wish I didn't know about it. And it's so mad, I think, the way that the world has grown with dogs. Like, I just remember my first ever dog that I'd ever come in contact with was like my granny's dog. And they bought him, I was 4, and I insisted on sleeping out in the shed with the dog, like out in the turf shed. Like, because, and it's so funny because she even brings it up now. She's like, dog mad from such a young age, because we couldn't understand it, because she was like, we had a dog, the dog lived outside, the dog ate the scraps, and that's what the dog did. And now you're coming down, I'm the eldest of 26 grandchildren. And I've just turned 30, and there's all this pressure on like, when are you going to get married and have babies? And I'm like, welcome Thor, everybody. So they're kind of just going, maybe this is as good as we're going to get with you, because
Yeah.
we know that you're more obsessed. They feel nearly responsible that there's so many kids younger than me that I'm just allergic, that I'm like, it's always been this guy.
The other thing I want to talk to you about very briefly is you're going to get neutered, grand, but dogs that are neutered are 50% more likely to get obese than dogs that aren't neutered. And look, this is grand, it's absolutely fine, but you just need to know beforehand that that's going to happen. And so whereas when a dog is still growing, like Thor is, you can kind of give him as much food as he wants and he'll be happy out. But once they be neutered, their metabolism slows down, and that means that if you carry on feeding the same amount of food, they get fat. So the answer for you is simple, which is, first of all, once he's neutered, you need to reduce his food a little bit, and he won't thank you for it, but you need to do it, otherwise he will get fat. And the other thing you need to do is to weigh him every month. Now, you can weigh him on your bathroom scales, literally by standing on the scales, then lift him up, and then weigh the two of you, and then work out his weight. Or you can go into a vet's and they have walk-on electronic scales, which is an awful lot more civilized and easy.
Yeah.
But certainly, weighing them every month, I think, is really important, because flat-faced dogs especially, if they do put on weight, they have additional problems because the fat tends to gather around their neck. And because it gathers around their neck, it tends to sort of squash their airways even more, and so they have even more problems. So it's just a case, and it's actually quite difficult to tell whether a dog's putting on weight sometimes, because like he's got a lot of muscle, and so you know and sometimes obesity can present like sort of like seal blubber almost, and so it kind of mimics muscle in some ways, and it's quite hard to tell if a dog is too fat.
That's really good to know, because I didn't know that at all before. And I'm kind of hoping as well, another one of the reasons why we're getting him neutered is because socialization for him is so important to me. And all I want to make sure is that Thor forever, because he's still in that puppy phase, he's still only one, but I want to make sure that he like forever is still having great interactions with other dogs and other people all of the time. And I've kind of noticed that like sometimes in the morning now, because a lot of people have gone back to work, our park can be a bit hit and miss on whether he meets a dog at that time. And I'm going, oh crap, like where's, because he a couple of months ago, if we like rewind back, that place was full of them, and they had their like puppy club and all that in the morning. So I am looking just to put him into a doggy daycare. I've researched a couple of them that he's going to go and do his training days when he gets the snip. But it's more so for me. I just want to like, I'm this weird bloody parent, and I just want to make sure that he's as happy as he can possibly be.
That's all the right stuff. That's great. But some doggy daycares won't take male dogs, you see. They have to be neutered,
and every one of them that I have been in contact with, once they're over 6 months, they will not take them unless they're neutered. And I get it. It can be chaotic when you've got unneutered males around the place. And like, Thor's not a very like jealous dog, but like it's a dominant thing you can see sometimes, and you do have to be totally on the ball of a situation can change just like that. So I suppose that's their near insurance policy of it. Like, you know, they are still supervised, but it's a little less kind of like tangible if they're actually gone. So that's like a huge thing for me. Actually, another thing when I'm talking about that is that I want to like ask you about too, because I've done a lot of research on this as well. When Thor is meeting other dogs, I can find that on their behalf, especially little Jack Russells, they absolutely despise him. But it takes other dogs a lot longer to warm up to him. Now, not a whole pile, but they'll never run up and instantly be okay playing with them. They need to come up. And I've read that it's because they have no tail, so they can't read that. And because their face is so flat, they can't read the muscles in the same way as well.
I think you're absolutely right, yeah. Because dogs work entirely by body language, or at least almost entirely. I mean, like when my little dog Kiko, we met three strange dogs yesterday, and they were off the leash. And it's sometimes helpful to have them off the leash because they can express themselves fully. One of the problems in parks is dogs are often on leashes, and that means that the dogs can't express themselves properly, and they might sometimes they become aggressive because they can't run away. And so leashes is complicated. But when I saw Kiko with the three other dogs, it was fascinating to see the body language. They were sort of jumping and jumping forwards, and they were doing these play bows, you know, where they go down low and
Yeah.
then jump up and then all this sort of stuff. But you're right, dogs are used to dog shapes, and that means long noses, it means ears that move around a bit, and it means tails that are very mobile as well. So Thor's he's got his
That's such a disadvantage.
Yes, he is. He's a little bit dumb in that, as in not being able to speak properly in dog language. Yeah,
Yeah,
but
and it's so upsetting as well because he is so sociable and like he loves playing with them, and he has, like, God bless him, he's been attacked a good few times now. Because me and Brian, I mean, we've been so conscious of it since day dot. We're always around, and if there's an unfamiliar dog coming up, like, we will try to introduce them on the leads and see what happens. But there was one dog in particular up at the park the other day, and this is how quick they can turn and how you have to be on the ball and keeping an eye on them all the time. There was a dog that the very first time I met him, I was a bit kind of wary of the situation. He was like a Jack Russell Staffy cross. He's absolutely gorgeous, there's no doubt about that. But he was very on edge coming up towards Thor. And then Thor was kind of very much like, are you my friend? Are you not my friend? What are we going to do here? So they had a little sniff. And because the first sniff interaction was good, I was like, we're going to move it along. So we did that, said goodbye to the owner, that was fine. The second time they met, then it was on leads, and the other dog got aggressive straight away. I'm like, like the owner as well was like, I'm really sorry, like he's never done this before. And I was like, it's fine, we'll move it along. So the next time that we came along, again, we met them in the park. He was having a play with another rough collie and their neighbors, so they just kind of potter about together all the time. And this other dog came into the situation, and all the owners were talking, and it was fine, and we just kept an eye on him. And they had a sniff, and then they had a play, and it was all totally grand. And then next thing, I just spotted the language change on the other dog, where the ridge of his back just went up. And we were straight away being like, Thor, and the dog launched at the same time. Now, luckily, we were there to like pull Thor up. Like, Brian laughs at me so much. His ears, like, they're so prominent, but he's got a split down the bottom of one, because obviously they're the easiest thing to grab onto. So he split the ear, and I was there crying in the park, and I was like, his silhouette is ruined. Brian was like, his silhouette is the worst, like the last thing we're thinking of here. But I didn't mean it from aesthetics, but it was just, I was like, my poor baby, like he just got like attacked for no reason, and he's this little child. So it is, and that's another thing, if you've got a flat-faced breed, that you have to be conscious of, that like introductions, because like that, I never want him to have a bad run of dogs and then become aggressive back to them. So like, it's something that we're like, we can leave the situation, that's no problem, like get yourself out of it, but we are then just trying to make sure that he has really great social interactions with lots of different breeds.
And that's what's so great about doggy daycare. I mean, I found that for myself, is that my little dog Kiko, she's grand with most dogs, but sometimes if we haven't seen dogs around for some time, for some reason, she can be very anxious about them.
Yeah.
And then if we take a doggy daycare, not for too much, a couple of days a week, and she has lots of playtime with lots of dogs, then she gets much more chilled with dogs that she meets in the park. So it's very interesting. I guess it's a form of doggy psychology. It's really.
And like I always say as well, I'm like, you know, they're just like people. You're not gonna like every person you meet, and like I'll never condemn another dog being like, you didn't like my child. But if they like that, there might be a reason why they don't like him. And like that, sometimes he's not arsed with dogs either. He's very much like, you're not my cup of tea, like, let's move on. And you can't expect them to like every dog all the time. And I know I went to a dog trainer before, and he told me that he was like, especially with like older dogs and younger dogs, you would never in a million years have your child and be like, go play with that man. You know, there's different styles of play all the time. And he was like, if you just even take it back to that a little bit, he's like, A, that man is going to be like, what the hell? Why is this child coming up on top of me? And like B, like that like puppy just wants to play and play and play and play and play, whereas the older dogs don't want to do that either. So like you've got to tailor them up. One thing we've had to tailor with him though, because we've spoken about it so much in this, he's just pure muscle. Because he's the same size as a lot of smaller dogs, he doesn't realize that they're not as strong as he is. So when they're running to chase for ball, like he'll shoulder them out of the way, and I'm looking going, oh my God. And this dog is like rolling down a bloody hill, and I'm going, oh fuck. And then obviously everyone's like, oh my God, you're a bulldog. And I'm like, yeah, I know, he's really great. But he much prefers to play with bigger dogs. So in St. Anne's Park, there's a section where they have like the small dog park and the big dog park. And we'll run in, And we've tried him in the small dog park a few times because there's been another couple of French bulldogs in there, but he'll just go straight over to the fence of the big dogs and wait to throw him over. And then he's like running the mill with all these like Alsatians. And there was like this Great Dane puppy the other day that didn't know what to do with him. She was so flanky. She was like, what are you? You're way too small to be in here.
So in his head, he's a big dog.
He's huge. Like, he's absolutely massive. But like,
he's living up to his name.
Yeah, he has got small dog syndrome. Like, he's absolutely on that ball. But yeah, he just loves playing with them. But I think what he likes about playing with the bigger breeds is the fact that when he shoulders them out of the way and when he jumps on them, they don't cry and they stay playing.
Yeah. They get the game. They get the game. Yeah. Laura, there's a couple of questions. Can I ask you these questions?
Of course you can.
One of them is, what was the dog program you were talking about?
So it's literally called The Dog House. So it's on,
is it on Netflix or what's it on?
It's on Sky. I think it's a Channel 4 program.
Right.
My friend who is like deceased about dogs all the time, she'll see me in the street and start crying. She really needs professional help. But she had put it on to me and I was like, oh yeah, I'll sit down and watch it. And I'm hooked. Like, it's got 2 seasons.
The Dog House.
Yeah.
All right. We'll all look out for that. And there's a couple of more. Here's another question from Angus. What age do boy dogs' testicles appear? Oh, that's a pretty technical question. Angus the dog, the doodle man, Angus the doodle man. Well, I can answer that one. Basically, usually, well, when they're very young, like 3 or 4 weeks of age, the testicles descend. So usually when you get a puppy about 8 or 10 or 12 weeks, both testicles are there. And his testicles are there. He's got the 2 of them, has he?
Thor.
Yeah.
Yeah, oh sorry, this was something that fascinated us because when he arrived to us, he had these like small, tiny little things, and then one day they just appeared, and we were like, "Oh my God, look at Thor's balls!" But with the neutering process, then Pete, like what happens exactly?
Well, it is castration, so you're removing both those little testicles. They're both coming away. But normally, what happens is, like, if that's the underside of the dog, so if he was standing up here, these are his front legs, like here and here. These are his back legs here and here. Basically, the little testicles are here and here. So what they do is make a little cut just in front of those, just in front. One little cut, and then this little testicle gets pushed forward and it comes out, and this little testicle gets pushed forward and comes out. So there's just one little slit there. And sometimes it's actually, often these days, we don't even put any stitches in. Everything is internal. So it's improved an awful lot. And these days also, like 20, 30 years ago, dogs didn't have pain relief after procedures like that. But these days, plenty of pain relief given. So as far as he's concerned, the only hassle is going to have a little wound, which he might well want to lick. Because if there's anything different in a dog's body, they want to lick it just because it's there. So sometimes for that reason, they have to go home with one of these plastic collars around their head, you know? So that
I bought the
inflatable one.
I bought the inflatable one. I have it sitting here. I got it off Petfix about 2 months ago now at this point when we initially thought we were getting a new shirt. Because like that, like he's had the cone on for various reasons. He's actually been quite unlucky as a bloody dog. Every like random thing that could go wrong went wrong. So he got an ingrown hair. He got an ingrown hair in his eye before. Like, and again, this was another thing that he was so hardy about, that there was just this constant tear coming down, and we were like, "Oh, are you okay?" Till it literally got conjunctivitis.
Why are you crying?
Yeah, what's wrong with you? And we brought him in, and the vets were like, "That's a serious pain dose." So they had to make a little sip, but he had the cone on him for it was nearly 3 weeks at that point because the healing process was so much, and they had to do so much with them. But when we took it off, we were like, "Yay, the cone's off!" And he was like, "All right." Like, and I think it's more so humans. You kind of nearly like you put your emotions onto how you think the dog will be feeling with this cone around them, but it's just something they get used to then again.
And I think dogs live absolutely in a minute, in a moment, in a second. Yeah. As far as he's concerned, it's over very quickly. Like, I'm wearing this thing, it's a bit weird, but then when it comes off, well, that's grand again. They don't really reflect on it like we do you know? Laura, listen, we've been talking for ages, and I've really enjoyed it, but we better wind up. You've got to go and have your evening, whatever the heck you do in your evening. I'm sure you're very, very busy indeed.
Go watch the Dog House. I'm not that busy this evening.
But thank you so much. Thank you so much for giving us your time.
No, and
thanks
thank
for-
you so much, because I genuinely mean it when I say that the service Petfix provides, even down to the flea and worm tablets coming on a subscription every single month, I would totally forget, like without a doubt. So they arrive in the post and they go straight in his food. But being able to contact you at 10 o'clock at night to say, I don't know what's going on, I think he's seen a ghost, and for you to come back with a response and go, I think this might have been what happened instead, has just been, just been so putting my mind at ease all the time. So helpful.
Thanks for being so appreciative, because that's like, we're doing it for people like you, and it's great that people like you are actually using it and benefiting from it. And really appreciate that, Laura. So thank you so much.
Well, I will more. Thank you.
Good luck with it all anyway, and we'll talk to you again. And yeah, I look forward to meeting Thor in the flesh one of these days.
I know, I actually can't wait.
So,
okay, see you later.
and thank you everybody for tuning in, and we'll see you all next week. All right. Bye, Laura. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
L is for the way you
At Petfix Club, we want to make owning a pet the best it can possibly be for you and the one you love. Enjoy personalised online pet care at petfixclub.com. Start your free trial today. Love your pet? Join the club.